My name's Paul Whittaker. I'm here at the County Ground in Derby. It's the 7th of November 2018, and today I'm talking to
Adrian Bonsall.
Morning, Adrian. Nice of you to join us down here. Now, you wanted to talk to us about your family history and your family involvement in watching Derbyshire and playing cricket in Derbyshire. I understand you started out, your father introduced you to cricket.
Yeah, I suppose going back to the 1930s, my father's family have got a strong cricket heritage. They used to live in Newton, very near Blackwell, obviously, where the great partnership of the early 1900s took place. And my father was taken at a very early age to Chesterfield, and he saw some great matches against Yorkshire in particular, and probably in post-war he remembers the great crowds that went to Chesterfield, and there was no sitting, everyone was standing because of the space was at a premium. One particular story that he's told me was that him and his mother were sitting in the pavilion, and Yorkshire were batting, and his mother was knitting away, and the knitting needle were clanking, and this lady tapped my grandmother on the shoulder and said, will you desist, please? You're making one hell of a noise. Bearing in mind it was total quietness, and all you could hear was clank, 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 clank. And it was Brian Sellers' wife, and Brian Sellers was batting at the time, so that's why I guess she reprimanded my grandmother.
Sounds from that as though Brian's wife was very much the same sort of character as Brian himself. I think he had a similar sort of reputation.
I would have thought so, yes, yeah. But so my father continued to go regularly, and when I was brought into the world, I think one of the first matches he took me to was the Trent Bridge Test match against South Africa in 1965. Quite a famous match. Graham Pollock had scored a century the day before, and we went, and we went to see England bat, and Colin Cowdery dutifully got a century. But it was quite interesting because he devised a score sheet for me. I'd never done this before, and written it all down on a piece of paper, and I did 5-bar gate scoring for the whole day. But I always remember that match, the scorching hot day, this huge scoreboard, the old manual scoreboard that used to have at Trent Bridge, and also looking back in retrospect, I saw Eddie Barlow bowl, and also as a great Derbyshire stalwart who was umpiring, Charlie Elliott. So it was a great event. I still remember it to this day. The 1960s were, I was brought down here quite frequently to see Derbyshire. I mean, about 1965 to 1966, I remember the opening partnerships between Smith and Gibbs. Probably not the most riveting batting on occasions, but some great occasions. I always seemed to be cold and wet down in Derby, but when I went to Chesterfield with my father, it was always hot and sunny. And one of those occasions was 1968, when Derbyshire played the Australians, and again I remember that match very, very clearly. The Neil Hawke racing into bowl, and it was a great Australian side at the time. There was Ian Chappell playing, Doug Waters, Mallet, and a number of other great players, and it was one of those great matches where Derbyshire had to score, I think 330 odd, 336 in the final innings, and it was the highest total of the match, and they failed by 6 or 7 runs. Wonderful memories there. And then the following year, again it was a nice hot sunny day, we went to Chesterfield with my father, and we saw the Gillette Cup semi-final. A huge number of people there, over 10,000 people. And I remember sitting by the old, well, it's still the scoreboard on tiered wooden seating, temporary seating, and watching with, probably not too much pleasure, Derbyshire's innings of 130 odd, 136 I think it was, against a strong Sussex side, which contained, pretty powerful players, people like Snow, Gregg, the Bus brothers, Jim Parks was playing as well.
Ted Dexter was even
I think he'd retired then by that time, and it was an astonishing day, because I think there was some twitchiness in the crowd after the Derbyshire innings, and 136, and then Sussex came into bat, and we thought, oh, it's all going to be a doddle, and then you saw this momentous series of fast bowling from Ward and Rhodes. I can't remember what Rhodes' analysis was, but I think he bowled about 5 or 6 maidens, and it was something like 7 over 6 maidens, 0 for 4, something. And then of course Peter Eyre came in and wiped the tail. But those really my formative years in watching cricket and playing cricket in the 1960s.
So when you were watching it as a boy in the 60s, who were your favourite players from Derbyshire and from other counties?
My favourite player overall was Basil D'Oliveira, and I don't think anything political. It was just I got attracted to the way he played, and of course everything became much more important in the late 60s, and what he stood for. Derbyshire players, I think. My favourite Derbyshire players of those early years was Chris Wilkins. Because I'd never seen anything like it when Chris Wilkins came here and he started hitting sixes. I don't think I'd seen a six before, certainly down here. And it was a breath of fresh air. I'd just never seen anything like it before. A person who was so exuberant, who was so in love with hitting the ball and not bowing to conventional tactics. And I think he played for 3 seasons. I remember some of the great innings he played, just tonking the ball out the ground and thinking, this is so different. I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I can remember a few great innings from Chris. I think it was Gerald Mortimer in the Telegraph that said something to the effect of, when he's on form, the bowlers are merely there to throw the ball for him to hit. I think that's right from Chris. I
think the disappointment for Chris's point of view, he's deceased, but he never had the opportunity to play for internationally, because I think he would have been a considerable player at international level.
Yes.
But I think in my early years, you respected people like Derek Morgan in Buxton with his huge in-swingers, and some of the doughty batsmen. But this person who just brought, he was just totally different to anything I'd seen before.
Yes. So were you more of somebody that came to watch the batsmen rather than the bowlers, or any of the bowlers that you particularly remember?
I think Jackson.
That was Brian
Jackson, yeah. Of course, Harold Rhodes and Alan Ward. And I always used to think that Alan Ward had a lovely action. Superb bowling run up and a lovely action. I think those are the 2 principal bowlers I'll always remember. Okay, you have Peter Eyre's performance against Sussex that will stick in the memory, but Rhodes and Ward were such a formidable opening partnership.
Yes, yeah. And then as you grew up and have had a family, you began to introduce your son to the cricket. How old was he when you first brought him down?
He was 7 or 8, and we came down to watch a 40 over match, and kept bringing him down, and unfortunately, in those early days, some of the T20 matches, Derbyshire kept losing, and he said, when we went away from the ground, why do you bring me down to Derbyshire? And I think we went to Chesterfield a couple of times as well. Derbyshire always seemed to lose. I said, well, I'm sorry, you better get used to it. This is what I've grown up with, but again, it will grow on you. And eventually they did win. I think it was a Yorkshire T20 match, and he's been subsumed by the right interest in cricket, but especially Derbyshire cricket ever since.
Yeah, and so how old is your son?
Aidan is now 13, going on 14.
13. So he's the age that the ECB are targeting for this 100 ball thing. Is he looking forward to that?
Frankly, can't understand the ECB's direction on this. He's bewildered by it. He sees a sport in his very naive eyes, which he can appreciate, and a lot of his friends can as well. And he doesn't see why there's another need. There's a need to bring another format of the game in. He's utterly perplexed, and in his young eyes, he thinks it's going to ruin cricket.
Is he a fan of 2020 cricket, or does he like other?
He likes all formats, but he will willingly come with me to championship matches and shiver if we're sitting outside, and sit there for 7 or 8 hours without complaint. He's constantly analysing what's going on, looking at the field. He's correcting me as well, which probably a sign of my age, on some of my observations. But he's looking at that all the time, and he's picked this up through not only live cricket, but also cricket videos. He's got a whole stack of cricket videos going back many years. He likes cricket history, he collects wisdoms, and many of the time I found him in Derbyshire bookshop looking for yearbooks, looking for general cricket paraphernalia, which he can read and learn more about the game. Yeah,
and he's playing cricket as well as watching.
Yeah, he's a very good cricketer. It's his primary game. He's very interested in it. He's playing for his school at Loughborough Grammar, and also he's playing for the local club. It's not in Derbyshire, I have hastened to say. It's in Cropston, just near Bradgate Park. But he plays for the junior age groups, and he again, going back to this the ECB initiative on the 100, he cannot understand why the ECB are saying there's so few people interested in cricket, because there's 20 or 30 boys and girls that turn up every Friday night at this local village cricket club, and he's saying, well, these are people who are really interested in cricket, and why we're doing something different. But he's doing well. He plays for the men's Sunday team as well, and he's also played for the Cropston's second team as well. There was an incident last year which was quite amusing actually, because I took him down to dropped him off at the club, and unfortunately one or two players had dropped out on the morning of the match, and the second team captain was looking around for replacements, and he said, well, how about you, Adrian? I said, well, I haven't played for 30 years. I last played up in Yorkshire when I was working up there. He said, well, go and get your whites. And I said, well, okay, I'll play. And it turned out to be, we were playing a reasonably formidable side, and when we batted, Aidan went in about number 5 and number 6, and he was nurdling the ball around quite successfully, and he got on to 11 or 12. But unfortunately we suffered a collapse, and I was put in about 9 or 10, and so I went in at number 10, and I was quite nervous actually. There was quite a sort of experienced spinner on at the time, and I was anxious to get off the mark. And my first ball, I just drove it to mid-on, and it was this classic Jeff Boycott, yes, no, wait, call, and I successfully ran out my son. So, and
have you played together since?
And my son, I think he handled it pretty well actually, but there was roars of derision from the pavilion, and of course the opposition didn't know, celebrating successful dismissal of my lad. But yes, I haven't quite lived it down yet.
But you have tried to make it up to him, I understand, by taking to see a few test matches?
Yeah, yes, I have, and he grew the seed in my mind that wouldn't it be nice to go to Australia and see a few test matches. So I thought, well, people do, well, they can always hope, but maybe it will come to them sometime in life. But we decided to do that last year, and we had a very, very enjoyable holiday in Australia, where we saw all 5 days of the Melbourne Test match and 3 days of the Sydney Test match, plus a couple of Big Bash games, and it's really cemented his interest in the game and his passion for the game.
Yeah. Is there a noticeable difference between the Big Bash in Australia and the 2020 as we have it here?
That's the ironic thing, is I don't think there is, and that's why Aidan is perplexed, and T20 is very much like Big Bash, so why didn't the ECB capitalise on that particular on the interest in T20? But what they have done, of course, is that Australia film a lot of their matches on free to air, and that's the big difference on all the Big Bash matches and a lot of the Test matches as well.
So people have got more chance to actually see the games.
So the seeds of interest are sown at a very young age in Australia, and it's a noticeable difference.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Adrian. It's been very nice to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.